Hey guys, in this video today I want to take a look at the iPad mini 7 and how it runs DaVinci Resolve for the iPad. The iPad mini 7 has the iPhone 15 Pro chip inside. That is the A17 Pro. And that is actually a so powerful chip that even Apple themselves didn't advertise that you can now run Final Cut Pro. Yes, it works, and DaVinci Resolve even with no limitations. Let me explain you what I mean. Hey, and welcome to my channel. I'm Daniel, and here on this channel it's all about DaVinci Resolve on the iPad and Final Cut Pro on the iPad. My original iPad, the one that I used here for the channel where I made all of my videos, is an M1 iPad Pro that I got in 2021. Because with the M1 chip, a desktop-like chip, I was able to let DaVinci run better than on my Dell that I had at that time. In the meantime, I also upgraded to a MacBook as well, because for video editing, they are just fine. I'm not a fanboy, I'm just saying. Now I got also the iPad mini 7 because I think this is an underrated device. And I know many of you guys actually want to know, can I actually use DaVinci Resolve or Final Cut Pro? I will make a separate video just for Final Cut Pro and I will teach you that in the next video or show you that in the next video. In this video today, let's take a look at DaVinci Resolve. First of all, we have to know that DaVinci Resolve has no limitation. You can actually run it on any iPad, but it doesn't mean it runs good. They have a couple of features that they took away when you have not an M-chip iPad. So what does it mean? Like all the iPad Pros since 2021, like the M1, M2, and the M4, they are running DaVinci Resolve super fine. And the older ones, you can open DaVinci Resolve, but you have some limitations. For example, you can't create timelines with 8K or 4K. You are limited to just a 2K timeline. In the most cases, like even most of my videos, I still just do in 2K because most explainer videos, I don't have to create them in 4K. But some filmmakers, of course, they want to have the 4K capability. And let's jump into DaVinci Resolve here on the iPad. Here it is, DaVinci Resolve here on the iPad. I can open this one and it will start DaVinci Resolve 19. Fun fact, I logged in with my same Apple account. I didn't have to purchase the studio version again. So I'm using now my studio version for DaVinci Resolve that I purchased once here on this iPad Pro with the M1 and now even here on my iPad mini because I used the same account. Let's create a new project because the first time when you get greeted with DaVinci Resolve is something like this. There's a window where you can create your projects. So here on the left side, you also have a library. You don't have to take care about this one yet, but if you want to do a proper job, how to set up libraries, you can create different libraries. You can even create a library on an SSD hard drive. And this is why I think the iPad mini 7 is underrated because we have all the capabilities like on the big one, even with the USB-C port and even the SSD support. I have here a dongle, for example, and I could plug in an SSD drive. I will now create a new project. We can just come in here and say here on the bottom, new project. I can give this a name. Let's do this test iPad mini and create. And now I have my project open. I can just simply come in here to the left side. This is the menu where I can import all of my footage. Then here on the bottom, that's the timeline. And then here on the top right, you will see in a second, this is where I can view my footage from the media pool and also from the timeline. So let's just do that. I can import here from import media and import from photos. By the way, one fun fact about the iPad mini 7 is it has support for the Apple Pencil Pro. That means all the features of the Apple Pencil Pro you can now use on an iPad mini 7 as well. This is amazing. This is why I think this is a total underrated device. For example, I know this is not the newest feature, but we also have the same feature like that was introduced with the iPad M2 version that we can hover over stuff here with my pencil. That is particularly interesting because my iPad M1 still has the old Apple Pencil, not Pro, the regular pencil, which costs the same. With this one, you will get the feature and you can actually hover over stuff here. Okay, so we can import media from our hard drive or we can import media from the photos. I already imported a couple of photos here, so I can select these. So I just select these. So these are some test images. Now it will ask me, do you want to change the frame rate, the project frame rate, to the frame rate of your videos that you're importing? I shot my videos in different frame rates. It's 4K, sometimes 120 frames, sometimes 60 frames. I don't want that it's changing because normally when I create a project, I want that the project has my project settings. I will show you that in a second. So I don't import here. And now here in the media pool, here on the left side, you will see all the footage that I just imported here in DaVinci Resolve on my iPad mini. And fun fact, with the hover feature again, I can now come here with the pencil and hover over the things and see that. You can do the same if you add an external mouse, and then you will have here this green thing, and you can just hover over things. So this feature always existed. I can do the same here on my older iPad. Of course, it works with the mouse, but I couldn't do the hover just with the Apple Pencil. So this is a very cool feature. Now I will show you, I would just grab all of these here. And by the way, if you don't have a keyboard, I'm having a keyboard here already because I'm used to work with a keyboard. I will show you my keyboard in a second. I now just grab everything. So if you want to hover over everything, you can just longer press here in an empty area and make this one here. Then you have all of your footage marked, or you can use the Apple Pencil and then also select some area, hover over. Now everything is marked, and now I can drag and drop this here down into my timeline. And I promised to show you the project settings. So when we come down here, we also have this gear icon. If you click on the gear icon, you will see all of your master settings. And these are the project settings. So I can change all of my settings in here. So currently that's a 1920 by 1080 timeline, that's 2K, but you can change that here to whatever you like. And these are the default settings. So whenever I create a new timeline and I say choose my project settings, these are my project settings. And you have a couple of more settings in here. I will not go through all of them, but just that you know and see that. So this is now the timeline where I can go through my footage. And because I'm in the cut page, so if you're completely new to DaVinci Resolve is known for many different pages depending on the work you're doing. If you're doing audio and music, there's a dedicated page for music. If you're finishing up, like if your video is done, then there is a deliver page. And with the iPad, we got two of these pages, the cut page and the color page. And the cut page is basically the original. That is cool. Oh yeah, I clicked on this white line. You have to be careful if you use this mouse, because it will always snap to positions like this. And if I now click, I will go and I will basically do the swipe. Don't need that. So officially the iPad version of DaVinci Resolve launched with two pages, the cut page and also here the color page. That is the complete full color page that they use in Hollywood to make Hollywood movies. Almost every Hollywood movie is color graded in the color page. And you have all of these features on an iPad mini. Anyway, if you're a longer viewer here on my channel, you know one of the first things that I found out, because I was just interested, is this is the exact same software. We can have the other pages. That's why I have a keyboard here. For that, to bring them up, you actually need a keyboard or a Bluetooth keyboard. Somewhere here on my channel, I have a video how to unlock all the pages just with an iPhone or an Android. That is possible as well. But basically with a keyboard shortcut. So if I come here with my keyboard and I type in Option, Command and K, I can open the keyboard shortcut. So all the features that DaVinci Resolve has, I can now bind keyboard shortcuts to it, and then I can open them even if the UI, the surface, doesn't show me the feature. And DaVinci is so big, even on the desktop, that it's not even possible to make icons for each feature. So over the course, when you learn DaVinci Resolve, you will actually then learn to use shortcuts, because certain things you can only do with shortcuts, especially now with the iPad version, because that is more limited than to the desktop version. For example, on a Mac or a desktop, you have the huge menu bar on the top, right? With file, workspace, whatever, everything is on the top. On the iPad, we don't have that. So that is basically missing here on the top. We don't have that. So everything that we could access from here on the top, we now have to use shortcuts on the iPad version. But this is the good thing. Every feature is there. I'll give you an example. I have a shortcut now to open the media page. I can have another shortcut here for the classical edit page. That is the timeline edit page that most editors are used to. That is the, I would say, the big brother of the cut page. The cut page was designed to be fast for rough cuts, but you can do a lot. You can actually make YouTube videos just with the cut page. That is the reason why DaVinci Resolve on the iPad was released with the cut page. And I also have here the Fairlight page, which is something similar to if you come from Adobe After Effects, where you can do motion graphics. You can do this here in the Fusion page. Here I'll show you. That's the Fusion page. This here is the edit page. It just has a couple of more features, very similar to the cut page, but just more stuff that you can do. And you can zoom in and out here in your timeline. So I can actually zoom in here, zoom out, use this slider here on the side, that one here. I can use this to zoom in and out. That doesn't work on the cut page. The reason why, because Blackmagic, when they came up with the idea of a cut page, they realized that most editors, they studied editors everywhere. And what we do, and I do that still, is we zoom in and out and zoom in and out and zoom in and out, either using the scroll wheel or the fingers or a keyboard shortcut, or maybe even what I just showed you here on the edit page, or maybe that one. And all of these clicks, they accumulate over time. And actually we were wasting a lot of time, especially when we are talking about the rough cut. The rough cut of a movie is usually at the beginning. I just want to make a very fast cut to see the idea of my movie. All the fine tuning comes later. And that is when you use the edit page for the fine tuning. But for the rough cut, you can use this here. So there is no zooming, but that is the reason why we have two timelines here in the cut page. So if you look at the cut page, I have here my playhead, and I can now drag this left and right. You can do this with your finger or with your pencil. And I can also grab this little playhead here, and I can go through the timeline here. So this timeline always shows you the entire timeline of DaVinci Resolve, of your project that is open right now, to be exactly, of the timeline that you are open right now. Because as you remember, we created the project here. You can always come here with the home icon, come back to your projects. We are now in the project Test iPad Mini. And in this project, Test iPad Mini, I have here a timeline. You can see this here with this. This is actually, we have selected this one right now. This timeline is open. But I could create a new timeline. I could come here into an empty area, right click, and then for example, say here, create new timeline. You can do the same with the pencil, just longer press here on an empty area, you will get this pop-up menu. And then I can say here, create new timeline. And now it will ask me for a name for the next timeline, and I can use the project settings or give it complete new settings. If I turn this one off, I can come in here and change the settings for that timeline. For example, maybe my first timeline was for YouTube, horizontal videos. And now I want to create a short of my timeline. So what I can do is, for example, I can say here, use vertical resolutions. Now the numbers will be flipped, and now I have a vertical video here. And I want to keep 1080 by 1920, but I will also show you now something. I told you we are having not an M chip, but I can go down here now all the way to even 8K. It's just the opposite, so let's turn this one off so that it looks more natural. I can go all the way down here to 8K resolution timeline. I can create this on an iPad mini. I have to say that again. This feature is limited to M chips, M1, M2, M4. Now on an A17 Pro, we can do the same. And it's actually handling 8K material. I saw other YouTubers who showed that. I don't have an 8K material here, but I have a 4K video loaded into the timeline. I can do this. So if you have the older iPad mini, or you're using an older iPad Pro that doesn't have the M1, this is one of the limitations that you have, that some certain features you can't use. I will not explain all of them because I don't even know out of my head all of them, but there's a couple of features, not that many. So the basic features of DaVinci Resolve you can use. So if you're watching this and you have an iPad, just run it. Some iPads can actually run DaVinci Resolve, and especially if you're not using like 8K or 4K videos, if you're just using a full HD timeline, like a 2K resolution, then it should be fine. You can actually use it. So let's create this 8K timeline, create. Now I have my second timeline in here, and every timeline that is selected will be shown here. Now I can work in the timeline number 2. If I want to go back to timeline 1, I have two options. I can either now double click here on this one or double tap with my pencil. Then I'm in timeline 1. Or here on top of the viewer, you will always see here, this is timeline 1. I can also now select timeline 2. So I can, inside of my project, I can create multiple timelines. And that makes sense for different reasons. Number one, because of maybe different aspect ratios, like we now tested, maybe a vertical, a horizontal, or maybe you're working with a client. So let's say you make your movie is done, it's the first final version. You send your video to your client, and then the client says, oh, can you change that, and that. What I recommend is, if you have a scenario like this, let's say timeline 1 is the one that you created, then you come in here, right click, and you say duplicate that timeline. Now we have a duplicate, a copy, and I would actually change the naming here to revision 2. That one was revision 1, this one is revision 2. If you work like this, the first timeline will stay the same. All of your changes, all fine. Now you have a copy, I can open this, and I can do all of my changes in that timeline. Why is this important? If you ever worked with clients, you know that now you do your changes and now you send him the new final version number 2, revision 2. You send it to him, and now the client comes, It doesn't look exactly as I wanted it. Can you go back? The first version was actually better. And if you haven't done this, what I just told you, you now would go back into DaVinci and change all the stuff backwards, which would take you time depending on how much work you had to put in. No. Every time you have a part finished, you just create a new timeline. This is a way how you can save your work. And you can do the same for yourself when you work on your YouTube videos or whatever you do. You can create multiple timelines for revisions or steps in your process. One more thing that is amazing about the iPad mini 7 is it has the same capability like an iPad Pro. I can connect Bluetooth devices. So here is my iPad mini 7. I connected now this Newfie V60 is, I think, V62. This is the Air 60. This is a Bluetooth keyboard that you can use, a very good one. Very nice sound. It's a productivity keyboard. And I also use the Logitech MX Master 2, I think. It's an older one, but this is one of the best mouses you have, also with Bluetooth. And I can connect this now here to my iPad mini, and I can use my shortcuts to go through my timeline and just to speed up my workflow. And the cool thing about both of these devices is both of them have like a setting that I can change between iPads or laptops or computers. So now the setting is that I'm connected to this iPad mini. But I have here my iPad Pro, my other device. Now I can very fast, here for example with my mouse, I have 3 different settings. The first one is for my MacBook. The second one now is for my iPad. So I can take this, and now I have my mouse here on my iPad as well. Seamlessly, I swap to another device. And the same with the Newfie keyboard. So the shortcut for that is actually you use the FN key, and then W, E, and R are the 4 different Bluetooth modes that they have. I'm now at Bluetooth mode FNE for my small one. If I go to FNW, now it swaps, and now I can use my keyboard to work. Can I? Yes. Yes, I can. And I can come in here. So now I can use my keyboard here on my iPad. And if I would have a MacBook or a laptop or whatever, I can connect these kind of devices to them as well. Why I show you this? Because it's amazing. You can use Bluetooth devices with your iPad mini as well to make you more productive as well. For example, I show you something. The company Blackmagic Design, who also creates DaVinci Resolve, one of the reasons why DaVinci Resolve is free, I know there is a studio version where you can pay, but I still think the price is, if you compare it to other software out there on the market, it is one of the cheapest editing softwares that you can get. You don't have to pay a subscription one time. You get all the functions that the desktop version can as well. And DaVinci Resolve, like the company Blackmagic Design, they create a lot of hardware as well. For example, the so-called speed editor. With this device, it's designed for the cut page in DaVinci Resolve to make yourself faster. You have cool options to do this here and everything. And because this is Bluetooth, I can connect this to my iPad mini as well. I haven't tried this yet, but this works as well. And by the way, I also created a complete masterclass for the speed editor that is also part of the masterclass for DaVinci Resolve. Because I'm now working with DaVinci Resolve on the iPad since 2 years, when I found out the hack that it's actually the full software, I had so many people here on my channel who wanted to learn about DaVinci Resolve. And on the way, I also created the masterclass in German and in English. So if you're watching, if you're German, you can actually also purchase the German version. Both masterclasses exist. And in this masterclass, I teach you everything about DaVinci Resolve on the iPad, even the speed editor that is included in the DaVinci Resolve iPad Masterclass. But if you're already familiar with DaVinci Resolve and you don't need the Masterclass for DaVinci Resolve, I have this course separate as well. This is the Speed Editor Masterclass, where you learn a lot about DaVinci Resolve and the Speed Editor and how you can use it. And this is a perfect example how you could travel lightweight with an iPad mini, just have Dab 1 and the Apple Pencil, and you can do a lot of things. You can use this to, do your rough cuts and everything. Definitely check it out. There's a link here in the description. How does it now compare and how does it feel? So we have the iPad mini here. As you can see, I have the same project open. This is how the iPad mini looks, and this is the iPad Pro. And of course, the sizes matter if you edit a lot, right? If I, let's see, it's always hard to make a video and show you this in person, but basically, if we look at this, you have a smaller iPad. It is less screen. But if you have a smaller timeline, let's say, for example, only like 2 or 3 or 4 tracks, you could actually do this here with the iPad mini. And because the performance is good enough, I didn't have any lags, you can actually use the iPad mini. And since like DaVinci Resolve version 19, we also got this feature here that you can make the timeline even smaller. That becomes very handy even here for the iPad version. By the way, you always have a full screen mode here. You can always watch your stuff in full screen. And basically, when it comes to the question, does it even make sense to work on an iPad mini, or should you go with an iPad 11-inch, or should you even go with the iPad 13-inch? And I want to give you my honest feedback about this. So first of all, I'm very impressed about the iPad mini 7. And one thing I haven't talked about is the difference in weight. If I use my iPad 11-inch with the Magic Keyboard and the Apple Pencil, this whole package is heavier than a MacBook Air. Let me say that again. This package is heavier than a MacBook Air, but because I'm editing so much, I don't want to just travel with the iPad. I actually want to have a keyboard. So I love this setup, and you saw me here on the channel using this, and I will keep using this. But the first time I had this in my hand, I was like, crazy. I think my iPhone 16 is more heavy than the iPad mini. I'm not sure if that is true, but this is just a personal, I should have a weight or something. Let me know in the comments if that's, but this setup here feels as heavy as that. So this iPad mini with all the functions and the iPad Pencil Pro, and it can run DaVinci Resolve with no limitations. Again, no limitations. And I did some benchmark tests with the 17 Pro and with the M1. And I will show you this here on the screen as well. It has the same performance than my M1. I don't have an M2, I don't have an M4. I didn't want it to upgrade because I still believe that most features you can use on the M1. If you are coming from an older iPad, of course, then get a newer iPad. But if you still have an M1 or M2, I don't think you have to upgrade to the M4, only if you want to get these new features and the new pencil. But DaVinci Resolve itself is not optimized yet. So these features, like with there is here, I can go back and forward when I squeeze, right? Or rotation and stuff like that. That doesn't work. The only benefit that you have is that you have the hover feature. But if you have an iPad Pro with the M2 or the iPad Air with M2, you already have the hover feature. So there's nothing new that the Apple Pencil Pro can give you, only if you are using the iPad for everything else that comes with the package. So here, for example, I have GoodNotes where I can write notes, and now I can squeeze. These kind of features are new for the Apple Pencil Pro. And if you use this software, the apps that can support this, then amazing. Maybe in the future, DaVinci Resolve will make an upgrade where we can use the Apple Pencil Pro features. But personally, I don't think this will happen soon because most users don't have the Apple Pencil Pro. That's why I don't think they will implement that in the future or soon. But who knows? Maybe Blackmagic is watching and, oh wait, what? We can create something? Yeah, it would be amazing. Imagine you can squeeze this and you get a couple of features. If you use that, this would be amazing for the people who just use the iPad with a pencil. So definitely you could put a couple of features in here which would make the iPad more convenient. Because at the moment for me, I still want to use my keyboard. If I use my keyboard, I would just be faster. Point. That's it. So, but now let's talk about the screen size. First, I was a person, I thought the iPad mini just makes no sense because it's so small. There will be projects where you want to have this iPad. And every time when I worked on the iPad mini and then I go to my iPad 11-inch, I feel like, wow, it's so big. It's so funny. I never had this experience before with my iPad, but every time I work with this one, I go back to that one, then yes, I see that it's bigger and it just makes more sense. And from an editing standpoint, I would say the bigger iPads make more sense because you can do more, you see more, and it's not so tiny. But it doesn't mean that you cannot use it. As you see here, I can use it, it's responsive, I can create my timelines. I wouldn't create a timeline with like 30 different tracks. I think then it becomes just messy. The comparison is, this is so lightweight. I can basically just keep this in one hand. Don't need a second hand for that. This is the biggest bonus of the iPad mini. I don't want to say that it doesn't make sense to have it. It depends on your needs, what you're creating. DaVinci Resolve for itself, I think, is a very complex software where in the long run, a bigger screen makes more sense. For example, I love the iPad 11-inch as the in-between size between the 13 and this one now. And for gaming and stuff, I really like it but it's still heavy. or heavier than that after I had this one now. But just for DaVinci Resolve, I'm thinking my next iPad Pro will probably be the 13-inch, then when the M5 or something comes out. Before, it just doesn't make sense to upgrade, especially now, because now I can use the Apple Pencil Pro here and play around with all the tools. It is hard to say, like, you can hear that maybe even when I'm talking now. It's hard to say that this is better or this is better. I get the same performance here, which is incredible. This is already, like, with the older iPad mini, there was no question. Go for the iPad Pro. But now you could actually buy the iPad mini and edit. Many of my videos that I did on my YouTube channel, it's possible to create here. I did them here, but it's not much more tracks. It was sometimes 3 or 4 tracks, and I can stack them here, and you can work with that. So, yeah, it's hard to say no. And the price point definitely is different, right? I mean, you don't need a Pro. The iPad Airs have the M chips in as well. And who knows what this year will happen. Maybe the standard iPad will get but I don't think it will get the 17 Pro or something. But who knows? Final Cut Pro is running as well. That is, for example, one of the limitations at the moment. I will make this in a separate video again. But Final Cut Pro only works on M chips. That was the announcement. So you needed an M1, M2, or M3 to run Final Cut Pro for the iPad. But not with this one. A17 Pro runs Final Cut Pro smooth, like butter. Just show you, even if I make another video, Final Cut Pro, it's on here. Here's the test thing, the test project. I have Final Cut Pro. Final Cut Pro, by the way, is more optimized for the iPad if you don't have a keyboard or mouse. And Final Cut Pro is optimized so you can use it just in your hand. You have here the jog wheel that you can use to go through your timeline. All the settings that you can do is in your hand reach. It's a bit more optimized for just using the pencil and the touch interface, while DaVinci Resolve is the same software. That's why I always recommend to use a mouse or a keyboard or something like that. I think that's it. I talked so much now about this. You can see the passion. I showed you, I hope, most of the things. If not, let me know in the comments if you want to see something specific with the iPad mini. I can make another video and show you that. If you're interested in DaVinci Resolve or Final Cut Pro, I mean, the reason why I also show that is, and I will make a separate video about this, I also created a masterclass for Final Cut Pro on the iPad. So if you think DaVinci is too massive and I just need a little bit more simple software, which still can do a lot, then Final Cut Pro comes in. But the downside with Final Cut Pro is that you have a subscription model. It's not expensive. It's like $5 a month. If you're actually creating something for your business or so that you can make money back on it, then I think this is a no-brainer. If you want to use it, it's more optimized. It's maybe the better software for the iPad mini, not because of performance, both run well, but because of the screen. And I don't even want to buy a case with keyboard because of it's so lightweight. And I will not always, I'm honest, I will not always carry this around. But if I have it around, I can use it.
It's for a new life.
Final Cut Pro is also optimized that you can use shortcuts from a keyboard as well. Okay, that's it. So if you want to learn more, DaVinci Resolve iPad Masterclass, there's also the speed editor included, the Masterclass. So to learn the speed editor, not the speed editor itself. By the way, if you buy this speed editor, you get the studio version for DaVinci Resolve, but attention, just the desktop version. I couldn't, this is just how it is at the moment. You don't get the studio version for the iPad. You still have to buy them separate. Desktop is different to the iPad version, even if technically it's the same software. But anyway, if you want to learn more about that, there are the links here down in the description about DaVinci Resolve iPad Masterclass, about Final Cut Pro iPad Masterclass. And if you have any more questions, let me know in the comments. We see us in the next video. I'm Daniel, and good editing. See you soon. Bye. If you found this helpful, hit like, subscribe, dingle dingle, bang bang gong, and we see us in the next video. Bye bye.